Everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Dan, if you can see from his name there, Future of Work Sodergren. Dan, welcome. We're going to be talking about the future of work, the fifth revolution, all that stuff. Where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Just simply type in Dan Sodergren. I'm always on there quite a bit. And yeah, you can probably nowadays type in Dan Future of Work and you might be able to find me. That's just a little moment where the Zoom has picked that up from somewhere. But there you go. Maybe a middle name.
You've not changed it by default or something?
Well, not by default, not yet. I would bring in an emoji if I had done. Rocket. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, no, you find me or find my website, which is dansodergren.com. And even someone this morning found me through using AI. Apparently, Claude is very glowing about what I do. Grok less so, but that's a moment of bias from Elon Musk. But we won't discuss that now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he spends a lot of time thinking about you. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to say it's not just an algorithm that looks at this guy looks a bit woke and talks about diversity and inclusion. So let's be a little bit disparaging. I'm sure Elon.
So the human revolution. You often say that the fifth industrial revolution is more about psychology than technology. Why do you believe our mindset is currently a bigger bottleneck to progress than actual code being written?
Well, I mean, this thing, when you say code being written, we do change it a little bit. And certainly because of what happened in the last week, it's going to be fascinating what's happening with coding. I've been vibe coding for a couple of years now, it's the vibe coding idea and revolution. Certainly what's happening now with Claude and certainly with Replit and other people, the whole world has changed. And what you can now do with Gemini, you certainly couldn't have done 3 months ago. So that world has changed. But the reason why I talk about the human psychology or our human psychology being more important than the AI technology is because technology has always been around, right? Like the digital transformation piece has been around for 10 years. We've been talking about social selling and using social media for 15 years, maybe even 20. Yeah. But it's actually getting people on side. And that's human psychology. Now, because AI has exploded into the mindset of folk, I think ChatGPT is now on something like 900 million users. It took the humble telephone 72 years to get to 100 million people, and it took ChatGPT 72 days. It took ChatGPT 5.2, 72 hours to get to 800 million people. Now, that explosion, as we talk about with the future of work, it creates a psychological problem. And whether lots of people are adopting or not, adaptation comes before adoption. Yeah, so the human psychology is way more important. And when we talk about it for businesses, and I talk about the future of work, AI and technology with businesses and for businesses and organization, the actual point really is around human beings wanting to do it, being incentivized to do it, which a lot of businesses aren't doing, being trained to do it. The pillars of change, complex change, this moment of rapid uncertainty, which is the fifth industrial revolution, creates a psychological effect, which most leaders right now are not in the position to deal with because they're used to being bosses. They're not used to this moment of rapid change because revolutions change things fast, right? And the problem, of course, you've always got, and I think was it Jim Rohn? It may have been Jim Rohn that said this. He said, if you're not willing to risk the unusual, you've got to settle for the ordinary. Well, the problem with settle for the ordinary now in the revolutionary times is revolutions bring death, and they bring death to businesses. And this is where we are. But most people don't see it. And of course, Wayne Dyer brilliantly said, change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. If we all understood this is the fifth industrial revolution, we would change what we were doing. But that's the right so deep. Yeah, the human psychology is way more important than the AI technology. The AI technology, in fact, with machine learning, etc., has been around for a long time. All it took was ChatGPT to make it free and change the UX or change the UI, the user interface, and the whole world changed. But we've had chatbots for ages. We've had the ability to do this for a long time. We had to go into terminals and do clever stuff, right? And so the human part is so much more important because if you don't get the human part right, then a great example would be if you don't give people the resources to go to use AI properly, then you create frustration. Yeah, which is why you're 35% more likely to leave a job because they haven't trained you properly in AI. Well, the big problem we've got at the moment is that this is all work done with Personio, that 66% of people believe they haven't had good enough AI training. Now that creates anxiety, and that's why everyone's panicking at the moment. And that's also why you've got this massive rise of what we call shadow AI. And so shadow AI is simply using an AI system that you shouldn't be using for work. But it's 67% of people are doing that. That isn't just 67% of other people. That's you, that's me, that's 67% of everyone, of leaders. Everybody's using free versions of ChatGPT. ChatGPT, literally, no wonder they're in so much trouble and have to bring in ads. Only 5% of people pay for ChatGPT. Yeah. Now, if you're not in a geeky kind of world of AI, and we all, by the way, are now, this is the fifth industrial revolution, we can't go back. You have to realize the immense amount of danger you're putting your organization into when you haven't got an AI policy. And 54% of companies do not have an AI policy. Now, that's insane. But I get why, because the human psychology is more important than the AI technology. Leaders haven't had a chance to really grab hold of this because it's literally been a year. They haven't been able to train people because it wasn't in the training budgets for last year.
Yeah.
But it has to be now, because otherwise you've got people who want to leave. You've got people who are sad and worried and frightened and scared. Those bits of psychology are way more important than AI technology. AI technology is only going to get better and better and better. And ironically, we are potentially in the place where we're just going to get more and more scared and we're not going to do things. And that's the big problem. It's not, AI technology has very little to do with this. It's like trying to persuade someone to use a computer is much more about how you persuade them to use a computer, right? And it was, but we had 10 years. Now we've got 10 months. You know, we literally have, now we most probably even got 10 minutes or 10 days. Yeah. And they're doing it by themselves. Of course they are, because human beings do not like to do stuff for no reason. They like to save time. They like to be more productive. They like to create shortcuts. Well, this cognitive moment, this huge amount of the AI, which is the knowledge center of this world, it creates a shortcut for work. You can become 40% more productive using AI. Of course, you're going to use AI. If your boss hasn't created, or your leader hasn't created an AI policy, or one that doesn't fit and says, oh, you have to use Copilot, you're just going to use Claude because it's better. But of course you are. Claude doesn't cost very much more than Copilot. And nobody cares what the technology tool is. They only care about the results, right? Yeah. That's what we care about. So that's why.
So fear versus curiosity. You're talking there about leaders. So how can leaders move their teams from a threat mindset, as in AI is taking my job, to a tool mindset, as in AI is my intern, without sounding dismissive of their real concerns?
Well, I mean, this is one of the big things, isn't it? You've got to move from being a boss into being a leader. And this is why people are finding it very, very hard. It's also because they haven't had long to change, right? And human beings take a long time to change. Cultures take a long time to change, right?
You know, well, it took 100 years for us to accept the printing press, didn't it?
Well, precisely, right? And by then the Reformation, all these other things had already happened, and we'd fundamentally changed religion. And because we changed religion and the way that people's minds work, the whole thing bloody changed, right? Think of it again, same things with the computer. You know, Bill Gates, poor old Bill Gates, was sitting there saying, oh, everyone will have a PC. I can remember when that interview happened and everyone thought he was mad.
Yeah.
But it took a bit of time. But the thing about leadership right now is you don't have time. It's a revolution. And you have to fundamentally change. But human beings find it hard to change. And if you are in a powerful position, you might find it really hard to change. Because you're like, it worked before. Why doesn't it work now? And of course, Albert Einstein brilliantly said, you know, definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Now, we all know about change curves. We all know you go through this period, it's kind of, which is kind of mirrors the hype curve as well. And we're in this trough of disillusionment, most probably with the whole AI world and everyone's saying it's a bubble and all this thing, fundamentally missing that it's a paradigm shift. It's like moaning about electricity or caring about what electricity company is going to go under. Don't worry, the electricity is here. We use electricity, whether it's OpenAI, Claude, or whatever. I know there's a nuance and some are better than others, but don't worry about the AI bubble. The technology will still be here. But as a leader, be fundamentally worried that your people haven't got a growth mindset. And that's because you most probably haven't taught them that's a good idea, right? You most probably taught them that they have to follow the AI policy, or otherwise they're in trouble, or you don't even have an AI policy. So you're just creating uncertainty at a time of uncertainty. You know, and I hate, because I get told off, because my clients are leaders, and so I do keynotes for leaders. But I have to be honest with them. I have to say, look, if you don't have a growth mindset, if you haven't got a handle on this stuff, if you don't know why your AI policy is like this, and if you don't understand why Claude's better than Copilot or any of this stuff, you've got to lead from the front. You've got to be doing it. You can't just talk people into a revolution. You have to be part of the revolution. And I think that's one of the biggest problems here, is that most leaders, because they looked at AI like it was tech or a fad or something else, they said, oh, the CTO will deal with all this. It's somebody else's problem. I'll deal with the people. Well, you can't now. You have to be part of it. You have to be getting in there and doing stuff. And as soon as you are showing the team, I'm talking about team leaders as well as leaders of companies, you are showing the team what you do, everyone else will come on side, right? And the other big one, this is huge, incentives. It's I won't. You all know already. Vision, skills. The 5 pillars of change. And we all will, and they're cool. But the key one here that I'm not seeing any, very, very few companies do. Small tech startups, yes, but large organizations, no, because it's mind-blowing to them, is how do you incentivize company change? But also, how do you incentivize the utilization of AI? Way beyond whether our AI policy is right or wrong. It's much more about, okay, if someone's using AI, no matter what they're using it and how they're doing it, and they're good at it, how do we incentivize the fact they teach somebody else? If 66% of our people don't think they've been trained enough, how do we do it? Which is just beyond, oh, let's get Dan and let him teach them about Claude or whatever. But after they've been taught about it, how do you incentivize that best practice around AI to then populate into your whole company? And very, very, people aren't even doing things like sharing prompts, like, centralized databases, just basic stuff that you could do, they don't do because we didn't do it before.
Yeah. So can you walk us through the scale framework, especially what is the one smoking gun sign that a business is stuck at the start phase while their leadership thinks they're actually elevating?
That's a brilliant way of putting it. Yeah, scale is just something that I kind of came up with. It's a very basic idea. When you start and then you create, then you kind of activate, and then you link, and then you elevate. And of course, lots of leaders are like, oh, we're a lot further ahead than you are, than they are. And they get obsessed with these things. And of course, we know from all the stats, from Personio's great work with 9,000 people to lots of other work that I've done with loads of other folk, with all those stats, is that leadership often misunderstands where the average person is or their employees actually are. Now, this is a great opportunity because your employees actually are most probably a little bit ahead of this AI game than you are. Yeah. But what are you doing as a company? Yeah. So if you're starting out and you haven't got an AI policy, I imagine you're even before the start of scale. Yeah, because you don't even have the AI policy. That AI policy, by the way, I'm harping on about it, but the reason why is because if you have an AI policy in place, and yes, it's a continually changing document, which again freaks out leaders because they're like, it can't just keep changing.
We got it, and then put it on the shelf.
Yeah, exactly. We've written it. It took 9 months for us to write it. We've written it, and now it goes on the shelf just like employee stuff does. But what happens if employee law changed all the time, but rapidly every couple of days? You'd have to change it, right?
Yeah.
Like your HR policy has to start changing. Most people aren't even realizing now the dangers they're in as an organization with a whole raft of employee problems. I don't know, if you're in an HR meeting, I had this one the other day, you're in an HR meeting and your AI agent turns up and takes the notes, but you haven't said that at the beginning of the meeting. Well, is that illegal? Is that no longer a valid meeting because you haven't told them?
Well, I've turned up to meetings and there's more AI note takers than people.
That's like, and then we have to have a big chat about that, right? But this is why in the book Fifth Industrial Revolution I talk about artificial intelligence, but emotional intelligence, right? And our leaders have to become more emotionally intelligent. We have to start having new rules and new etiquette about this. Is it okay that the company that I work for allows me to send an intern? And that's why I talk about them as automated interns, right? Because why shouldn't you be able to send your automated intern? Why should I have to know to the meeting? Remember, our leaders do all this already, but through us, right? It's just the fact that because of, and I talk about independent intelligence and organizational intelligence in the book, but now we're all becoming CEOs because we can all have 5 interns. Gemini can become an intern, Claude becomes an intern, ChatGPT becomes an intern. My advice, of course, is always pay for your interns, as you should do in life, but also, by God, pay for your AI, because otherwise you're being data mined. And I don't care if anyone gets cross about it. Yes, you are, because you are. And that's really dangerous. Also, have you read your employee contracts? I imagine inside it says you're not allowed to use free ChatGPT to put work documents in, because you shouldn't be. And by the way, if it's not in your employee contract, please, for God's sake, put it in, because you're going to start losing stuff. Anyway, I suppose the thing really is with all these things is leaders can think they're further along than they are. But if you looked at something like, okay, are you using AI for the basics, like, I don't know, drafting contracts or content or whatever you're doing? What are you doing it for? If you're at that kind of create stage, great. But actually, there's much deeper ways of doing this. There's much, much deeper ways when you're talking about activated. And I know you specialize in social selling. So again, same principle. Are you just creating one email that's written pretty well? Or are you creating 10,000 emails that are amazingly written because of the psychological principles that you know about the person because of social media? Now, that's a richness, which is activation, when you're starting to activate it. And then You start thinking, how do I link stuff together? How do I take all this wonderful data that I've got? And let's make sure your data is wonderful before you start using it. I know we've talked to me, you, Tim, have talked about the importance of clean data for about 20 years because it doesn't change. That's the bedrock of your stuff. So I always, in my keynotes, I talk, data isn't oil, it's actually soil. It's how you grow great companies. And this data is really important. But if you've managed to link these bits together, then that's the next level of AI use. Yeah, it's an enriched AI use. It's gone past being an intern, but it's still very useful. And then elevate, well, then we go into the bit where has the AI or your series of AIs, and again, I would love to talk about this maybe in a little bit more depth around what should you really do as a business around this moment, because very few businesses are using it to elevate. That elevation principle, not only have you trained your people, not only are they using AI, not only are they all becoming bosses, not only are they thinking better, not only are you linking your data together, but actually what happens next, because you do all those things. What is the predictive analysis you can use for your business to have the organizational intelligence to fundamentally change the business? And whether that being streamlining the business, and my advice to all the companies I talk to, and it's very unfashionable at the moment, is retrain to retain. Keep your people. You'd rather have 100 people who have the power of 500 people, because that's what they can do. They all now can have a superpower. Don't fire 80% of your staff based on the fact that the other people can do the work, because the cognitive load of becoming a boss or becoming a leader of these interns is real, which is why human psychology more important than technology.
So you describe AI as an automated intern, just like a human intern. AI needs onboarding. What does bad versus good onboarding look like for an AI agent in a modern office?
Well, I wouldn't say AI agent, because I think they're going to be skipping ahead. And everyone in the AI world is being very naughty at the moment. We've all seen what happens with Maltbook and OpenClaw and all this other madness. I told people not to download it. Let's not say AI agent, not for a little while, but let's just say AI, which is why I say automated interns, right? And it keeps it easy because it's the same thing. How would you train up an intern? What would you do for an intern? Would you believe your intern? No. Would you give your intern really important work without checking it? No. What would you do for an intern? Well, I'd most probably teach them. Okay. You'd train the data set. Awesome. That's AI, right? I'd most probably pick the right intern. Awesome. Pick the right intern for the right job with a job description. People aren't doing this at the moment. They're just going to ChatGPT and saying, ChatGPT is all knowledgeable. I've heard it's hit AGI, therefore it must be amazing at everything. They don't customize it. They don't create a ChatGPT. They don't create other interns. They believe that the mass brain would be the best way they can utilize the technology, which I totally get because you've been told that, but it's not true. Just like in real life, you wouldn't just go to your doctor and say, hey, you're a great, clever person. So I tell you what, what's your thought about, I don't know, Man City's formation last night? Unless they're a Man City fan, why are you having that conversation? You can't presume it. Or what, I know, I don't really know that much about cars, but I don't know, what's the best car you can buy? Now, the doctor might know, but you shouldn't be going to the doctor with that question. It's the same principle. Pick the right LLM, the large language model, which specializes in what you do or what you want your intern to do. Train it to become better at the outcome. Give it praise when it gets it right. Yep. Tell it off when it gets it wrong. You might be surprised how well a good telling off actually does. Treat it like a human being, which is why you have to become emotionally intelligent. Be nice, train it up, make sure it learns things, and then keep it onto one task. And then, and this is a weird one, Tim and I people laugh when I say this, but there's a reason for it, okay? Do not cognitively overload your intern. Yeah.
Okay.
If you've been talking to your intern for half an hour about a task, stop. And then start again.
Right.
Yeah. Because it
go away and make a cup of tea and come back, you mean?
Well, I think even reset the whole thing, right?
Okay, right.
Well, take everything you've learned and then say to it, and this is about feedback and reviewing, isn't it? What did we learn? What did we do great? What if you were going to, this is a complete cheat. I shouldn't tell you this because it's in my training, but it's a great cheat. You actually ask it at the end, if we were to do this again, what would I do better? Now, you know as well as I do, that's what we call good management, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
That's what good management is.
It's an after incident review, isn't it? Or
it's back in the day stuff, right? I mean, all this stuff is, but that's because we didn't consider that computers could ever be need emotional intelligence. But technically, they're not, are they? They're just going garbage in, garbage out. Explain why it was garbage, garbage in, garbage better. It's just a feedback loop. You give them a good enough feedback loop from a human being, the thing gets better. Now, this is where it gets a little bit weird. Well, there's good news. Good news is the amount that an AI system en masse, whether it's DeepSeek, whether it's whatever, there's 8 different LLMs you can use. The amount that it can hold is doubling every 7 months. Okay, if you want to have one of the biggest, Claude, that's why I love Claude, because it has one of the biggest context windows and it's just awesome. Gemini is getting there, and actually Gemini is actually amazing as well now. And I don't know if you've seen how good Nano Banana is. I mean, I almost got, I could almost get rid of ChatGPT now, I think, and just have Claude and Gemini, but I don't, because every intern's good at something, right? Now ChatGPT is awesome at certain things, but not great at others. And I've literally got 87 different ChatGPTs, so they've got me by the short and curly, so to speak, because I have loads of data in there and they're going to keep it. And that's how they get them, of course. It's what the dead man's hook is, isn't it? They get you. That's how they get you. But if you're really sensible as a business and as an organization, and even as an individual, you'll start thinking, wait a minute, if I can do all this clever stuff, but I can also do all this clever stuff with a small language model, which you now can, and I can now download that small language model onto my machine, which you now can, you can then go, wait a minute, this is like servers back in the day. Everyone persuaded us to go onto the cloud because that's how they made money. Well, everyone's persuading you to use that AI because that's how they make money, but you can still use AI. Yeah. So instead you bring your AI and you bring it on premises, a small language model on premises, and then you train your intern internally. Now, the great thing about this is you can then, and this is where it gets, I think this is amazing. You can then get it to become cleverer and cleverer inside its own sandbox. As in, it doesn't go on the internet. It just does what you ask it to do. This is the same as, your intern not wandering off and going for a sandwich and then deciding to, read a book about, French novelists or something. You don't need that information in its head. Just keep it in. It's not like a human being. It is like a human being. But the great thing about it, it's not a human being. So you can say, no, you're going to learn just that. That's all you're going to learn. That's all you're going to do. And it becomes a specialist. Now that's the irony of this, is that's the future of AI, is actually small language models that are done by the company, which Microsoft and OpenAI and all these other people don't even see. They don't even see it. This is the same as you having having a solar panel in your house which powers your garage or whatever. They should never have allowed us to do this. They should have banned this, because this is how they make money. This is why the 5th Industrial Revolution is so exciting, because actually the ability, as long as you change your mindset, the ability to do this is in your hands. And actually it's not in the control of these massive tech companies. They are the most scared of open source that they've ever been. And that's the reason why. As Google famously said in something leaked a couple of years ago, while we've all been, squabbling, OpenAI haven't got the answer. They don't have a moat, neither do we. While we've been squabbling, a third faction will eat our lunch. And that third faction is open source. But Tim, because you'll say, back in the day, wasn't it? Open source could have had its day, and it still does have its day, because techie people don't use Microsoft, do they?
No.
Same principle here. Techie people won't, or really good marketing people won't use ChatGPT. Because why would you? There's no point. Also, it might take your data. There's no point. Also, it's not very good. It's not a specialist. Why in jobs, you only want specialists, right? And that's what we've got the chance to do. Now, the big thing here, of course, is that takes resources, and that takes a mindset, and that takes it to look at, like your CTO would have to know what they were doing, or he or she was doing, but also you'd have to give them the budget. And all this is a change. Because at the moment, we don't even like to pay for leaders don't like to pay for the paid version of Claude for their workers or their employees. That's the same as turning up and not getting a computer.
But today, it's like not providing people with Word and PowerPoint or whatever.
Well, absolutely. Or a mobile phone. But you can remember, and so could I.
I do. I remember begging for a mobile phone. Yeah.
Absolutely, begging for a mobile phone, and you're only allowed a BlackBerry.
And told I'm told that nobody uses them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they'll never take off. Oh, and by the one, the only one that you can use, you can't bring in your iPhone, even if it's from home, because that'll destroy everything. So you have to have this BlackBerry, and it's only if you're in sales you're getting a laptop, right? This is back in there. Now, of course, that change took 10 years, and we know that the leaders who stuck to their guns with those principles were not leaders for very long, were they? Because everyone was like, don't be crazy. They all need laptops. We all work on laptops. Now we all work with AI. So we all need AI. The big thing for me, and again, I always come back to this human psychology point, is that we have to change the company culture so our employees feel empowered that they can do that. And then we have to make sure that we're not scared that they're doing it. And again, that's a psychological issue, not a technological issue. And I'm not a psychologist.
Dan, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about the fifth industrial revolution. Always interesting to hear you talk and your thoughts. Remind people where they can get hold of you.
Come and find me over on the old LinkedIn if we're still there and it's not just full of AI bots. So you find me on LinkedIn. It's not an AI bot, it is me. And then also on my website, so dansodergren.com. Come and find out what I do. There's a lot of, also my Substack. There you go. That's another thing you can read. I do a fortnightly all about the future of work with some of my other thoughts around it, which is definitely worth doing. I also, I know you know this as well, Tim, that I kind of sometimes on radio on the BBC and stuff, there's a couple of books. I say that the Fifth Industrial Revolution is the main book, but if you're a leader, I would definitely have a look over on Gumroad, on my Gumroad. And if you mention the fact you heard it here on Tim's show, I will give it you for free. Have a look for the leadership book. That leadership book is not just that, it's also an AI GPT behind it, and also 5 podcasts as well we put in there. So it's a huge resource that you can use. It's written by 36 different people. And so as a thank you to you, Tim, because you've brought me on the show a couple of times and it's always lovely to be on it. Anyone says they'd like that book and mentions yourself, I'll give it them for free, which saves them £30. So there you go.
Excellent.